Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Premodern Showdown Series 5. We are here with a makeup week. As our week a little bit earlier, we had a player that was ill, and now Rich is feeling well enough to complete his match. I'm here. Jeff Green is camping, so we have a replacement, but a fine replacement in this case. We have Will Hirst. Hello, Will.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, so we have the match between Michael Arnold and Rich Shay. So I'm going to bring up what decks they have available right away. We can see that Mike Arnold has brought this girl, Star Spangled Slaughter, Angel McAngelface, War Angels, whatever you want to call it. Then Dead Guy Ale, and then Natural Rock, or Dark Secret, Natural Order Rock. Another deck I feel like with very convoluted names. Rich Shay, a little more straightforward. Red Green Goblins, Oath Parfait, and then blue white Stifle Knot. So, do you want to make predictions on this, Will, or should we just jump over to the decks?
Quick predictions. I think Mike on Secret Force wouldn't be a bad idea. And then Parfait for Rich Shay is where I'm thinking.
Okay, we will jump right on over. First deck we have is from Mike Arnold. He's playing the Dark Secret deck. So, a few things. If we just like start with the basis of the classic rock archetype, there's a lot of the elements here. If we take out, I guess I'm trying to take out. It takes out, I guess, more of like the top end, and like the Ravenous Baloths aren't as frequent, and I guess a little bit less disruption. Not even that much less. But you're adding in Natural Order, and then you have some heavy hitters like Verdant Force, Phantom Nishoba, and Multani Marrow Sorcerer. Multani...
Marrow Sorcerer.
Okay, all right.
Whatever.
I wasn't sure if I'm getting it mixed up with the one from Invasion or whatever. But
No,
either way,
right.
there are... It kind of like, say, if we're going to take the rock, which is lower power but high consistency, this is going to say, let's be a little less consistent and have a lot more power. The ability to just turbo out a Verdant Force can be really powerful in certain matchups. I'll note the 62 cards is a homage to Jamie Wakefield and his classic mana ratios that used to be run. So if you're wondering why there's 62 cards in Mike Arnold's list, that's why we have it there. Do you want to talk about this deck at all before we jump over to Rich's?
Pretty standard. Some different things you'll see in here versus the common trending in rock. Definitely more walls. Obviously, the ability to get big creatures to definitely go over the top of aggro decks, but also taking a look at things like it has the full range of Treetop Villages plus 2 Mishra's Factory, so it can have game against a possible Oath of Druids if Rich is on Parfait.
Okay. So Rich has selected the Red Green Goblins list. So this is like, if we talk about stock decks, the stock goblins, the green splash has been very common for a while. I will note that Rich is playing Rishadan Port over Wasteland or Ancient Tomb or whatever. We've seen that to good effect already in a previous match of his. And we've seen the goblins out in full force. There's 3 players with them, and I think each player played them this week. Do you want to say anything about goblins?
Pretty stock list. I do personally think that Rishadan Port within goblins is the better choice than Wasteland, as goblins, in my opinion, don't have strong turn 2 plays, and that's probably the best turn 2 play you can make. But outside of that, pretty stock, nothing too spicy to say. Goblins be goblining.
All right, let's jump down to the match. If you want to let our players know that they can begin. I do believe we have Rich Shay on the play here. He won the die roll.
It looks like each player keeping 7.
Okay.
It appears.
Players' hands at full strength here.
Yeah, we like to see that.
And I have the Goblin Lackey up, as that is typically the most important card for goblins in a lot of matchups. And this is not any different. The ability to connect with a lackey, especially on the play, will be really different than if Rich opens up with any other goblin.
Exactly. No lackey on turn 1. Therapy coming in from Mike Arnold. No turn 1 play, assuming he names War Chief, probably. That's a good bet.
Yeah, War Chief or Ringleader, I think, would be the most common names here. It looks like there is a War Chief.
Like he got the War Chief. Yep. And he's got a Ringleader in hand, too. So either of our choices would have been correct. We are good at this game. All right. A relatively slower hand for Rich. But he does have the turn 2 port, which will, Lava Dart Mike Arnold for 1.
Yes, thanks to the
best Rashad import ever.
Yeah, that's one thing I think I especially like about the Rich import in the Goblins list is you can keep a lot slower hands, and it Rich didn't have a turn 1 play, but he in some sense had a turn 2 play by Rich importing his opponent, and then he was thinking he was going to get to play a Goblin War Chief. So I think it makes a lot of draws a lot smoother.
I think it certainly does. It gives him things to do with the mana. In this case, as we said, even more powerful by the fact he gets to just lava dart him every turn.
Sure.
If he chose to.
Little chip points of damage, I think, could definitely come into play.
And one thing a lot of newer Goblin players that I see do is, or who have not played a lot, is don't realize how grindy Goblins can be. With ringleaders, with siege gangs, and all of the above. So a slower start doesn't necessarily mean a less powerful start. It just is a start in a different direction.
Yeah, a lot of matches it's not unhappy for the games to go along.
All right, so no follow-up from Mike Arnold. We're going to get down a drawn lackey.
Okay. And then, he still has the ability to use the port, so.
Exactly. So wall right here or removal spell from Mike Arnold is going to be highly important. Are we going to... Oh, there. Well, there's the Wall of Blossom. Draw a card, and lackey gets to stay home for a second.
Yeah, I don't think there's any Goblin or, sequence that Rich could have that would make this Goblin Lackey go through this turn. I guess if you had land, War Chief, and another Goblin Lackey, but
yeah,
I guess given that we know
asking for a lot.
I would say we know too much of the contents of the hands for that to be a possibility.
Yeah, there may be so. Oh, really? Okay, so he's gonna let I don't know. That's interesting. I wonder what he has, because this looks great with Rich's hand now. Getting the ringleader's great. I guess Top of the Duck may or may not punish this play.
That makes a lot of sense, because that the lackey is connecting here, but it preventing the ringleader from coming down, which Mike knows was going to happen. The saving the mana is not the important part. It's the ringleader hitting play and getting a bunch of cards. So,
or in having the deed in hand works too. Now I was just wondering about the lackey come in drawing the siege gang off the top or something like that. But sometimes you just got to go for it and just do the stuff, which makes sense. Lackey getting in again. See nothing. Or no, was that? He just passed turn. Sorry, it's fetching at end of turn. It's late. It's late for us all. I tell you, it's late for us all. All right.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think what Rich would need to do. So with an active deed, it's going to be kind of a little song and dance, I think, with Rich with how much he wants to commit. And right now we're kind of in a board state where I think Mike is kind of happy to leave this Pernicious Deed in play for a while if he's not going to commit more stuff to the board. Oh, never mind.
Oh,
one of the two
go away.
The two main deck Naturalize have come into play. So Naturalize is a good spot that Rich is still able to keep up the pressure and kind of protect his goblins by eliminating that Pernicious Deed. So
exactly. All right. So no payoff really for the lackey yet, which well, there goes the lackey.
Yeah. He'll get a chip point from the sharpshooter. Oh no, so we were targeting the sharpshooter. Okay.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
That allows him to play a Birds of Paradise. Well, the one thing about like birds is in this deck as compared to others is it could be natural order food.
Right, which the play pattern would make sense here. That Rashawn poured on City of Brass doing massive amounts of work.
But we do see that same thing. Yep,
order.
Natural order. This is Nishoba. I mean, you could get a Verdant Force. I would expect one of those two.
I can't imagine it's not Nishoba. I don't think there's anything Rich has right now that truly deals with it.
Well, I mean, it's also nice like knowing that the sharpshooter's gone, like that, like Verdant Force. Like you're still at 9. Like I mean, making a bunch of blockers, but yeah, like I think Nishoba is, the card we get.
Yeah, I mean, there Goblins, just if only for the fact that Goblins has the ability, maybe not on the one card in hand, but the ability to draw well into like a ringleader into this and just get you at a low life was where my mind would probably be within that scenario.
Yeah, like it's still a stretch for like this to go south for Mike, but
sure.
Like ringleader would be the next card. And I guess if he's at, it would start with a ringleader and probably another pile driver, but
that would make sense.
He does not have a lot of time given that this is attacking for 7. So
yeah, so that life total is going to swing. And then another. Okay, I can't imagine that's not going to wrap this up somewhere here. A deed sitting on the table will at least take care of a lackey. We'll get a trigger off on the pile driver to do a little bit more damage.
Yeah, Rich, I guess he's thinking if he wants to put anything into play from the lackey. I think that's maybe where we're at. But either way, I think I don't like Rich's odds in this spot. So
no, I mean, yeah, I don't know what even like. What would you do? Put in? Okay, so he just plays the Fanatic. Okay, so take 1 there. Nishoba going to swing in.
I'll say if Phantom Nishoba didn't have trample, it would be a lot different, but that trample makes a big difference.
Yeah, make sure Mike gains his life. Yep. I feel like this one's probably in a duress to see what's going on. I don't know any top deck that really saves this in any sort of way. I mean, it has to be ringleader into, well, yeah. I don't think this one's turned out in Rich's favor, unfortunately.
All right.
War Chief.
Rich will carry on a War Chief. I guess technically keeps him alive.
Blocks, yeah.
Take 6. Take 4 down to 1.
1. Gaining life for Mike Arnold. Mike Arnold back above 20. One more swing would probably, will put this away. You have my Elder.
I was to say a Siege Gang commander does put 5 toughness of goblins into play, but
sure, you aren't wrong. You definitely aren't wrong.
The Yavimaya Elder here, I think, would get in for the final points.
Yeah, just a little bit. All right, Matron, go get a ringleader.
Well, if he has another mountain, then he could play Siege Ganger, and then he would have an extra blocker for the Yavimaya Elder.
But I think he played out his last hand, okay. or last of his hand. So
Rich will check the deck, and I think there is no goblin in there that will help him from this situation. So
nope, I cannot no threaten, no goblin threaten or anything like that. I don't know.
I mean,
card that would even.
The original threaten.
Is there a goblin that threatens?
The original threaten has a goblin on it. Does that count?
I mean, that counts, right? Like, you can definitely fetch it if the art has a goblin on it. Okay, there it is. All right, moving on to game number 2.
Chad has suggested that you get Gilded Goblin to then switch.
Gilded Goblin.
If you just draw.
Yes, that guild.
If you just draw a goblin on your Gilded Drake, does that count?
Yeah. I mean, it's Magic. Set design nowadays, that might be a thing. They got stickers, so it might be draw your own creature type on a card one of these days.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. Sideboard in time.
Yes, let's take a peek. I first have the Goblins deck. So 2 Tormod's Crypt, 2 Pyroblast, 2 Red Elemental Blast, 2 Naturalize, 4 Pyrokinesis, 2 Tranquil Domain, and 1 Hull Breach. Well, none of these cards kind of like interact with the natural order aspect of the deck, which is probably the most problematic, I think, from Rich's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you want more? Do you want more interactions with like a pernicious? I mean, I guess you want answers to Plague, which you anticipate coming in. So like a card like Goblin Tinker is probably coming out, and maybe you get Naturalize or Tranquil Domains. I guess Tranquil Domain is better than Naturalize. I guess not all the time because there is Mishra's Factory, but you might be able to get a Deed and an Engineered Plague, but some minor upgrades I think from Rich, but he doesn't really get a good way to fight. I think the main game plan of what Mike Arnold is trying to do. If we look at Mike Arnold, he has 2 Tormod's Crypt, 2 Duress, 2 Vendetta, 2 Naturalize, 3 Engineered Plague, 1 Haunting Echoes, 2 Ravenous Baloth, and a Wood Ripper. So I would anticipate, especially on the draw, that these Vendettas are coming in, Engineered Plague. Cards that would go out, Duress, a couple copies of Duress would come out. And I think he's got Naturalize that I would take out. And then maybe one other card would be Multani. I don't know.
Yeah, Multani is the thing that's like, what is it really? I mean, it might be a big dude at some point, but the likelihood is it's not going to make that much of a difference.
I think it's a card when you have like against Swords of Plowshares decks that you just want something that's going to stick around, and so yeah.
This is just on face a tough matchup, I think, for goblins.
I was gonna say like with Mike being able to do this natural order thing, and get a card like Phantom Neshoba that really helps him catch up from board positions where he's behind. And sometimes just win if it like comes down like on turn 3. But now he also has these good sideboard cards that Rich just like really. I mean, Rich can interact with the sideboard cards, but Rich can't do anything about this game plan of natural order. And so yeah, I definitely I like Mike Arnold's chances in this matchup.
So we will see how it goes. Rich on the play. Should I let them know that they can go ahead anytime?
Yeah, they're fine to go.
All right. As a Goblin player, how do you typically find the Rock matchup to be? The times that I've had a chance to jam it, I find it to be very interactive.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to how vulnerable are you to an Engineered Plague or a Pernicious Deed, and then once that comes down, like, does your board get completely wiped out, or is it like something that you like? If you have to completely rebuild, then you give the Rock a lot of time. But if you're able to like keep like Ringleaders or War Chiefs in play, then you have a much better fighting chance. And especially if you're able to remove that Engineered Plague in a timely fashion. But I do think the Rock has a little bit of an advantage just because I think some of the haymakers are pretty good. And the other aspect, I guess, is like the Goblin Lackey aspect is like how well, because the Rock does have, sometimes they play Vendettas, sometimes they don't at all. Sometimes they have walls and some have less walls. And so the likelihood of a Lackey hitting is different depending on the Rock build. That's probably the biggest like thing that for the Goblin deck that I can look forward to is hitting with a Lackey early, but most of the time it's got to say like it's got to have Engineered Plague in mind.
Gotcha. All right. Players shuffling up. Rich drawing a 7 here. Mike Arnold drawing a 7 shortly. So as they shuffle up this PSS, no one truly running away with it. Everybody with at least a win, everybody with at least a loss. A lot of people just trading wins back and forth with another. Really very interesting and nerve-wracking for those of us playing, trying to get to that top 4 of what it looks like. So it's been very impressive.
Yeah, it makes it exciting, I think, for the viewers too, that like whoever they're rooting for, they know that they've got a fighting chance. And so it'll be interesting to see as we get towards the last weeks of how close we are for that. Is the top 4 clear, or is it just everyone in the mix? All right, when things start off, Goblin Lackey is the turn 1 play for Rich, and now we get to see if it connects. No, Vendetta is there for Mike Arnold. It'll cost him 2 life points, but I think a happy exchange for that.
I can't imagine he would complain. 1 second. Daniel?
Okay, and then Mike has a Wall of Roots for Richard Shay's Mog Fanatic, so things look to be pretty good for Mike, other than he's taking a couple. He should be at 17.
Should be at 17, right?
Yeah, if you want to message him real quick, you can just let him know 2 pings from the Land of Race and then 1 from the Vendetta. But yeah, we'll get the life total, at least from Mike Arnold's perspective, corrected, and there we go.
There it is.
All right, this is the second time that we've seen. Wait,
Jump Home Incinerator.
Oh, okay. I was thinking that it was a hard casted one. So.
Oh, he was cycling.
Yeah. So what happened was with 2 goblins in play. Okay, so I think Mike blocked, and then another Mogvanak came down, cycle for 2 more damage, so there was 3 total, and then the 2 sacrifices finished off the Well of Root. So.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, I was getting excited at the thought of a Gem Palm Incinerator getting hard cast again.
I was not. That is a nice ringleader, though. That's a beautiful ringleader.
So we see Matron, an Incinerator, and a Skirk Prospector.
Skirk, yep. It's always a good feeling when your ringleader goes ahead and grabs 3 goblins. That's a plague, though.
All right.
So that ringleader gonna start dealing just 1 a turn. Just 1. Nullifying that.
I'm trying to think if Rich has a Goblin King in his 75 that he can get with this Matron, but
I do not believe I saw a Goblin King anywhere in the 75 for Rich. So he may just be dead to like a double plague outside of a naturalize.
Okay. But I do believe that the last time we saw Rich is he brought in a lot of enchantment removal. And so I think I've been in certain times. I mean, this is a matchup. I think there's enough targets that you could pretty well defend of just bringing in all those Trickle Domains and Naturalizes and Hull Breach or whatnot.
Sure.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Rich has an answer to this Engineered Plague. Right.
All right, so that's good stuff right there. Pile Driver living through and can pump above the Engineered Plague, so that's a pleasant piece of news. Mike up here. He's making all his land drops, so he'll have resources. Man, this is probably a Baloth. That's yes. A Baloth. All right, Baloth looking to stabilize the ground here. Rich with a very big possibility of a very explosive hand here with that War Chief.
He needs a War Chief. He's going to have to pass the turn. I was going to say, if he got a 4th Goblin in play, then... But he would also need 2 extra mana. I guess he would need War Chief plus...
So he can go War Chief... no, Skirk just dies immediately. Never mind.
Yeah, if he had another Pile Driver, then he'd be able to sneak in that Gem Palm Incinerator.
Right. War Chief, yep. So setting up. Oh, good lord. There's another ringleader.
Okay, well that should refill the hand.
Oh God.
Siege Gang,
double Siege Gang War Chief.
Though Siege Gang not super impressive when that Engineered Plague stays in play. Though it could. Oh, we see full attack here. So the pile driver gets big.
Vendetta coming down.
I guess we might be a little bit earlier before. Okay, so the Vendetta is going to take out the pile driver before it gets pumped, and then the War Chief's going to get blocked, and it's just 2 damage. So not nearly as potent as we had. Though I mean, like Rich still has a very maybe very is not the right word. I mean, like CJ Commander like might come down and just like it having its ability to throw extra goblins if Mike is low enough. I mean, we do still have a Ravenous Baloth where he's able to gain 4 extra life, but even as it stands, like if this Engineered Plague stays in play, there's a fighting chance, I think, for Rich.
Right. 2 Baloths, though, a little bit more difficult. Not insurmountable, but definitely a little bit more difficult. Siege Gang coming in.
Yep, this 5 mana 1/1.
5 mana 1/1, but it can shock you for 2 mana and the sacrificing of a creature. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's kind of like the times where you pay 5 mana when there's a humility in play, but at least here now the Siege Gang still has an ability. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. Going down to 9. Is this a second plague? No, that's a deed.
Deed's not the scariest thing here, since Rich's cards cost 4 and 5, and
yeah,
that's equal or more than what Michael has on the board. So
yeah, maybe it could be. I mean, I don't see Rich playing out any more creatures than he has to, not knowing that's out there. Trying to think of where we go from here.
Well, I think it might just go into like defensive mode where Rich is just going to say, okay, you're going to attack with Balos, and I'm going to block and then throw them at your face. I guess the treetop villages that Mike has, like that actually could change the combat math drastically because they have trample. But a Rich Import helps there. But yeah, I think Rich is gonna. Oh, okay. This is so. I think the idea here is, I guess there is an incinerator still in play, or like in hand. So before damage, you could deal 3 to a Ravenous Baloth. But we see a treetop village get activated.
He's gonna incinerate.
No, I think he's tapping with the Rich Import.
Oh, okay. Well, that works too. Mike, considering his blocks here, if he blocks anything, it's an incinerator. Well,
the interesting thing is he could just play like a War Chief and then have the incinerator just available
as like a creature to play.
Well, no, just to deal 4 to a Ravenous Baloth.
Oh,
and like you don't need a ringleader to get into combat. But
that makes sense.
So it looks like Mike did not block. And so now we do see that sequence of the War Chief coming out post combat and taking out a Baloth. Michael gained 4 life before it dies.
All right. So game getting tighter. At some point, Rich maybe is just going to force Mike to pop that deed for a mount that kills the Engineered Plague.
Yeah. It'll be an interesting dance of like how many resources is Rich willing to commit to the board, because you got to hope that you have a way to get rid of that plague / deed and play for that game afterwards. I mean, I wonder. I mean, I guess if you just look at the board, there's 8 points of damage right there, thanks to the Siege Gang Commander.
It's also going to be interesting, too, because there's a certain point where if he starts attacking like he's attacking, where damage and life isn't gained at the appropriate time, like he'll have enough mana to just kill Rich in response to a Baloth dying.
Sure. And also having like a backup siege chain commander might mean that he's able to get a little bit more aggressive. I guess it probably doesn't lead to more damage. I was gonna say you get to attack with all 4, but if I guess the siege chain would block, you could fling it and then play the other one. But I guess that opens up yourself up to like getting fully board wiped with Deed and then not having a good follow up after that.
That's true. So I think you're right where Rich is in essentially defense mode, just like I'm gonna block, shoot things at you. I assume he probably has some sort of disenchant effect for the other engineered plague in case it ever comes down, like shoot you a bunch and then kill your plague and play things out again. Possibly, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm going to apologize to the crowd. I do have to step away for 1 second. I will be right back.
I'll say this Richard import that Rich has, I think, is doing a lot of work here because of the ability to tap down an aggressive or defensive treetop village and then still like stick around. One wasteland would take out one treetop, and then we would just see, I think, Mike will be able to be more aggressive or defensive with those other treetops. We do see the activation of a treetop to get a green creature, and then natural order is the play here. So while we were at a standstill before, and Rich is kind of trying to get a little incremental advantage, this natural order, I think, will be very problematic. Phantom Neshoba comes down. I guess the one hope for Rich is that there's not a lot of mana open for Mike Arnold, and if he were to draw a card like Tranquil Domain, it would take out the Plague and the Pernicious Deed, and then we might be in a spot where... Alright, we see a Naturalize after... Okay, we're taking out the Engineered Plague.
All right, I am back. So it looks like in the Neshoba happened.
Yes, thanks to a natural order, but one of the treetop villages was sacked. But then Rich was able to get a Naturalize off. So now the Engineered Plague is gone, but the Pernicious Deed is still there. Mm-hmm. And so...
Now the Neshoba lives through all manner of plague nonsense.
And any large activation of Deed. So.
Indeed. Sorry, that's what I meant, Deed.
Okay.
Yeah. Obviously, I know the cards we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I guess like if this spot, like I can just see Mike untapping and then activating Deed for 5, and then swinging with the Neshoba. Rich would be able to deal 4 damage, but then Mike gains a bunch of that back. I mean, 4 from the Baloth, and then between 7 and 5, depending on where Rich points the shots of the Siege Gang at.
Right.
Yeah, this is a tough spot, I think, for Rich. Like, if this sequence happened a few turns earlier, then I think he actually might have... I don't know if Mike was ever tapped out or tapped that low. But, like, you might actually just take out the Pernicious Deed, and then... Because it's tricky now, because I feel like if Rich ever just commits too much of the board, then the Deed will just be able to sweep everything up.
All right. So it looks like he is forcing the sacrifice of the Baloth. Cracking. Well, not necessarily. So, is there a world though where, because Neshoba isn't lifelink, it doesn't trigger right away, so it goes on the stack, right?
Correct.
Is there a way he goes like Siege Gang, so Prospector first? Because Mike is tapped out. Siege Gang, tokens.
Would this ever be enough damage?
So if he doesn't pop the deed, barring what's in his hand, I don't know. Is this it's a lackey. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 4, 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 10.
If only there was a sharpshooter in this mix.
Yeah, the sharpshooter would certainly be helpful. This will not kill Mike Arnold.
So if a deed was activated pre-combat, you would sack all 3 tokens and deal 2 damage, and Mike would be at 13. And then you would block a Siege Gang or a War Chief or something. Rich could fling that goblin at Mike, so there's no life gain, and he would go to 11. And then there'd be a connection of 4, 5, 6, and he would go to 5. So and then after that, there's 5. How much mana? There's 1 mana, 5. You would need 3 activations. If you were able to put in another Siege Gang with the lackey, I think you'd have enough. If you put in...
Yeah, I think we'd always empty-handed, so we can rule those off of the board.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think as it stands, the maximum amount of damage Rich could deal here would, assuming that the deed gets activated, would be...
I mean, if you're not dead here, I don't think you pop this deed. If he's empty-handed and you are not dead in one... Well, no, never mind. There's a Skirk Prospector out there.
Yeah, I would say if you let these goblins come through, then you would die. You would take 13 from the 13 with the combat damage plus the activations of the. I guess it'd be.
I mean, I think the correct choice is here. There's probably a way he's dead if he doesn't do anything. I think the correct choice is probably... This is probably the safest bet.
Yep,
I don't know. I'm bad at goblin math.
All 3 goblins were sacked for... Or two goblins were sacked for mana, and 1 was flung at Mike. I guess, you do have the option of kind of chipping away this Phantom Nishoba. But...
Mm-hmm. I don't know. We'll let chat decide on the goblin math. I'm not even going to attempt.
Yeah, the Nishoba is going to block one of the... I guess it could be Siege, it could be War Chief.
I would... If you can't kill both Siege Gangs, then the War Chief is probably the better...
I agree, because the next turn, like Pile Driver, Matron, whatnot, could be problematic. I think the War Chief actually is, in the immediate future, I think, the card you're worried about.
That makes sense. Tense match.
Well, I mean, it's wild to think like that we saw Engineered Plague, Pernicious Steed, Ravenous Baloth, and a Phantom Nishoba. And the next turn, Rich is like in a position where we are thinking that he might win. That's right. That's pretty wild. So
that's some goblins for you, especially through a Nishoba as well. So never count out the gobos.
So think Mike is trying to figure out which goblin he needs to block.
Makes sense. I mean,
I think maybe Rich is tapping mana. I mean, his plays would be pretty straightforward. I feel like the goblin that gets blocked gets thrown at. I guess maybe he would have to decide whether it goes at the Neshoba or not. But
right. Not quite sure where they're at in combat here.
Well, also if the Rishadan port is used and Mike stays alive, then does Mike have enough on the crackback with Treetop Villages too? So Treetop Village plus Neshoba plus Mishra's Factory is 12 damage.
So,
but if Mike went for that attack of a just 12 damage, Rich could sacrifice 3 goblins and shoot the Neshoba for 1, and then it would only be 11. But still pretty. I mean, Rich would stay alive, but I think okay. It goes through the math, and I unless I'm missing something.
I think he's conceding.
Okay.
Rich conceded, I'm assuming.
Unless I'm missing something. Players are shuffling. I think okay. We got the deep sideboarding from Rich, so we'll jump down and we'll listen to the players. So okay, nothing crazy that like we didn't see happen, but right. I got a little nervous. I'm like, wait, what just happened? So
what did we miss?
Pull that back. I'm gonna unmute these guys. I'm sure they have a couple questions for us.
Sure.
So, how'd you guys enjoy that?
That was actually really interesting. That second game especially. Well, we weren't sure like 100% like when people were picking up cards, like because it was at a stage where like that Rich was attacking. We're like, wait, did we miss something that Rich was able to find a way to win from that spot?
No, Michael played better than I did.
Okay,
that's the end of the story. Michael played that better than I did.
Were you unhappy with that, like how you played those last few turns specifically, or was it earlier than that?
Well, I definitely played those last few turns poorly.
Okay.
As soon as I attacked, I said I should not have made that attack.
Okay.
And but I don't know what I could have done there, but I don't think what I did there was good.
If you would have drawn Tranquil Domain instead of Naturalized, then you probably would have won that game.
If I had boarded in Tranquil Domain, that would have been comfortable.
Okay.
What we should have done.
Fair enough.
But one thing that was interesting is like a lot of times we've seen the song and dance with the Rock having Engineered Plague and Pernicious Deed, and it kind of goes where the goblins kind of just says like, I still have all these cards, and you have to pop your deed and blow up your Engineered Plague, and then I still have a ringleader or whatever. But the natural order does a very good job of like getting a card like Phantom Neshoba in play and kind of denies that comeback that goblins would normally have. So
yeah, I think that would have been good. I think that the natural order was incredibly good games 1 and 2, where Michael was able to assemble the Neshoba, and I was not able to beat it. So certainly Michael fought well and earned the win.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. I don't win often versus Rich, and we've played our fair share of matches, so I'll definitely take what I can get. But I think Tom's version of Lanny Rock and everything, and you can kind of see where these different versions of Rocks have their strength. Natural order, I think if you're expecting, I think it's a lot better than against combo, particularly just because you have a faster clock and can close out the game very quickly. And then against kind of like in the mid-range battles, natural order just gives you a way to just be able to overwhelm your opponent.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It was very good. It lets you really assemble a giant monster and put a Nishoba on the table, and that's not the best thing the goblins could ever hope to encounter.
Yeah.
I tried to stave it off in game 2 by hitting your wall of roots as quickly as I could.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was right, but I really didn't want you to play a forest and then natural order your wall into a Nishoba the next turn.
I did not have the natural order until the turn I played it.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I kept that hand. It had a lot of. It was like a 5-lander, but it was like it was at least 2 treetops, if not.
You had the Vendetta for my lackey.
Yeah, that's why I kept it. So I kept it on the strength of Vendetta, and the Manlands and everything like that. So
good.
yeah, I didn't want to get stuck under port. I felt a little squeezed, with port, game 1. But fortunately, I drew the necessary lands. Yeah. It's the extra 2 lands of the deck, I tell you.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. Having enough land is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was an interesting match. I've always found this matchup to be interesting. The Nishoba definitely puts it over the top in some ways, as we saw. The only thing I can think of now is for that second game, was there any area in which you consider an avenue of essentially shooting the Nishoba with goblins to shrink it, or does that just give Mike too much time to find things? I just don't know the matchup well.
As soon as I made my attack, I said I should not have made that attack. That was not.
Oh, okay.
The problem with playing it slow is that he'll eventually grind me out. So put yourself in my shoes. What do? You have 1 naturalize in hand. You've drawn 1 of your 4. I did not bring in Tranquil Domain. Maybe I should. I have a whole bunch of goblins in play, a whole bunch of goblins on the table. If I get too aggressive, he's going to be able to deed for 5, killing all of my stuff and just leaving the Nishoba in play. And he then also has Plague Out, so I cannot develop well. So my options are to naturalize the deed, and then I'm still stuck with a slowed back version of goblins because I'm slowed down by the plague. And I can also hit the plague, but then I'm trying to set up to get blown up by his Nishoba. Maybe I was supposed to hit the plague, untap, and just chip away and give him a 7 for 2 with the Nishoba.
It's not an enviable position.
There was a secret mode on Nishoba that I double checked there, and because if you didn't take out the Baloth first, I could have
for life. That's why I killed the Baloth
the Nishoba.
Your turn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, is Nishoba a beast?
Yeah,
it is a beast.
Somehow it is a beast.
And so, yeah, it's kind of Rich is in a difficult position because he knows I have 3 plagues in the deck, and if he allows the second plague to hit, that's just game over. Whereas at least with a deed he can potentially recover from. I think that's correct. To go after the plague right there, and of course taking out the Baloth, that makes total sense. Because even if he in alternate universe, I have to sack the Nishoba right there. I pop the deed just to clear the board. Well, I've got tons of manlands as of that point, so I can still hold the fort until I'm able to close the game out. Draw one of the other big bangers like a Recurring Nightmare or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the all-out attack there is just wrong. That just loses every possible way. And I think that the better play probably would have tried to play for the long game, but as Michael said, he was going to deed away my board. So I would have had to hope to draw into a ringleader, a very good ringleader, because I was going to be getting clobbered by the manlands for 5 a turn, and I was at 15, I think. So I had a 3-turn window to basically explode into ringleader goblins, which is very unlikely, and even 1 ringleader is probably not going to drag me out of it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's a sweet matchup. Rock has to be able to just survive those early couple turns and that onslaught, and eventually get more advantage off the deeds than Goblins gets off to the ringleader. So
exactly.
yeah, it's pretty sweet to dance around that.
Yeah,
makes sense.
I'm just happy to be 2-0 with my baby here.
Yeah.
This is one of the things I put together, which I was like the most excited about. And when I shared, with Jared this list, he was one of the first people, and he's like, I just bought 4 natural orders on TCG, like immediately right there. I shared it with Rich, who like hates the rock right there. And if I can get Rich's thumb of approval on this deck, I mean, that is.
Deck. Imagine if Rock had a plan. Imagine if Rock had a direction to go in life. This goes back to that discussion that Lanny introduced into the Discord about strategy and tactics, and you've given a tactical deck a strategy, and that's cool.
A lot of fun. Shout out to Anton Glanz, who like years ago when I ran mono green Secret Force in my first monthly, I went 0-6. He's like, you should add black for it. And totally forgot who the guy was until like years later when I loaded up that initial post. And so yeah, it's been a lot of fun to see this kind of take its own place in the pre-modern metagame.
All right.
Makes sense.
Well, that wraps up all the questions that I had. Will, is there anything else you wanted to ask before we let our players go?
Nope.
Okay.
I think the 2 great players were playing. I got nothing more to add.
Yeah, it was a
Michael was the greater player tonight. Well done.
Well, there's still some more rounds of the PSS, so don't count anybody out. But Mike did get the best of you tonight. So
absolutely, you earned it.
All right, we'll let players go, and then Will and I are going to wrap things up.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good one.
See everybody.
Okay, so let's quick jump here. Will, thanks for jumping in the boost. Thanks to everyone who's able to tune in. I know this isn't our normal scheduled time, but we had the availability with the players. Rich was feeling up to it, so thank you, Rich, for being cooperative and finding the time and at least enough health and strength to get to play. So thank you for that. Thanks, Will, for jumping in the booth with me.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I had fun with our little bonus episode, and it's nice that we're caught up. So we'll be back on Thursday with our normal schedule with 4 rounds. And but until next time, take care.
Sounds great. Take care, guys.